Hey, and good afternoon, and welcome to the Al Young Show. Today, we're very honored to have a special guest with us, and that's retired Lieutenant Colonel Denny Gillum from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he's a talk host. He's a talk show host, and he has his own radio show, and that's going to be the Front Lines of Freedom. And you know what? I got to tell you something. I'm so honored to have him here because he is someone who's doing something that I'm just very honored. I'm right now I'm kind of choked up because he's doing something that I'm trying to do and that he's been doing for a while, and I'd like to be out there like he is. And, you know, when you meet someone who's doing the thing that you're trying to do, you're trying to get information, you're trying to find out how he's doing it and how he's being successful at it. And this gentleman is very successful because he is expanding. And that's the one thing that I'm looking forward to doing one day. So without further ado, and wait a minute, let me not forget my co-host, Carl, because, matter of fact, Carl and Lieutenant Colonel Gilliam know each other.
Well, we just met. We knew each other by email. We know our mutual friends through Facebook.
Okay.
But, we were both Blue Spaders.
That's right. The Blue Spader that he wears, 1st Battalion, 26th Infantry, 26th Infantry Regiment. I served in that unit. Not in Vietnam, later on in Germany. He served it in Vietnam, but I was in the same brigade he was in Vietnam. So we're officially old soldiers, old fellows, something like that.
I prefer to refer to ourselves as gents of the jungle.
Ah, very good.
Well, okay then. Well, I guess I'm kind of more of a city slicker then. So anyway, come on, tell us something about you and what you're doing and your show, the whole 9 yards. Let everybody know what's going on.
Wow. Well, I went to West Point. I graduated 50 years ago this spring, so my 50th reunion's coming up, and I found out that some of my classmates have really gotten old, so I'm going to be interested in checking them out. Commissioned in the infantry, went to Airborne Ranger School, served 22 years on active duty in the infantry. Spent seven years here in Tampa. I was assigned, when I came back from Germany, from the 26th Infantry, I was assigned to what was then called U.S. Readiness Command, where I was the Mideast War Planner, which certainly set me up to have some insights on what's going on now. Was there 4 years, and then I was sent to the University of Tampa, where I headed the ROTC unit there for 3 years. At that point, I was really wanting to go to Norfolk, Virginia. There's the Armed Forces Staff College there, and I wanted to go teach. They wanted me, but they didn't have quite an opening in my rank in MOS. So I turned down Hawaii. I turned down everything. I was going to Norfolk. One day the phone rang. Some captain said, "Colonel, you have waited too long. You're going to Wyoming, Michigan." And I said, "Make up your mind, Wyoming or Michigan." He said, "No, sir, Wyoming is a city in Michigan." And so we're one of the very few people who moved north on I-75. Not very many people do that. Fell in love with the seasons again. So we stayed up there, but we come down over spring break to visit our friends and to find out that all white stuff on the ground is not snow. Some of it's called sand. That's what you call it. But after I was up there for a while, a friend of mine actually the son of a friend of mine was a radio computer geek in college. I never understood what he did because I'm an old guy. He got married, went to the Air Force, and while he was in the Air Force, he was stationed in Los Angeles and was allowed to do a little moonlighting, and he ended up producing what was then the Captain Dale Dye Show, which was then the #1 military talk radio show in the United States. Well, he got out of the Air Force, came back to Grand Rapids, where he worked a little bit in broadcast radio. He convinced the local station that they should have a military talk radio show. And they said, well, who will host it? He said, I'll call Denny Gillum. And he called me up and said, we want to do this. Will you host it?
Right.
And I've got a really good friend who's a Vietnam vet, who's an evangelist. And he advised me one time, a long time ago, sometimes the right answer to a question is, let me pray about that. Amen, okay. And that was my answer. And it took us several months. First, we did a model show as a special, which was run on Veterans Day, to see how that did, and it won first place in the state. And then the following June, we started the show. That would be 7 years ago this June. Started out as a 1 hour once a week. Now it's 2 hours once a week. Started on a one radio station, and just before we talked today, I found out we're now in 19 states and 46 stations.
That's really amazing.
We grew 200% last year. I'm hoping we can do that again this year. But in broadcast radio, if you're not on over 100 stations, you're not anybody yet. So we're still, but it's fun. The important thing is I know I'm doing something worthwhile and I'm doing it fun. And it keeps me off the streets. My wife doesn't have to wonder what I'm doing. But basically, while I talk about virtually everything military, my focus is current events. What's going on now? What do I see coming in the future? I've interviewed cabinet members, generals, admirals, colonels, majors, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, airmen, dependent wives, kids, VA people, veteran activity groups, Sons of the American Legion, you name it, if it has to do with the military. I've interviewed people on it, and I love it. It's exciting to me, and there's a lot out there, so I don't ever run out of material. But it's still producing a 2-hour show once a week.
Is this
a lot of work.
Okay, is this something that when you talk to them, do you get right into the meat of everything?
If I was interviewing you on the show, I have a 1 10-minute segment I call Shooting the Bull. Mm-hmm. And I have a vet on, and I start by saying, tell us about your time in the military. And we take 3-4 minutes to talk about that.
Right.
Then I'd say, what are you doing now? And we would just shoot the bull. And I would tell you I expect at least one funny story, preferably 2 or 3. And basically the thought is that veterans, 1, served, and 2, were just people. Tell about your kids, tell me about your family, tell about your job, tell about what you're doing fun. And we just talk about whatever. Wherever the rabbit runs, we chase it.
Right.
Though I will always have 2 or 3 other interviews. The one coming up next week is retired Navy Admiral Lyons, James Lyons. He was CINCPAC for quite a while. I've interviewed former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Bolton, John Bolton. He's a regular. Several other people. Rick Grinnell, who appears periodically on Fox and for that matter, Al Jazeera. He's a friend and a regular. On the other hand, one of my lieutenants when I was in the 101st Airborne Division as a company commander retired as the Surgeon General of the Army, and then was for just a little over a year at the end of the Bush regime the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Nice having that young lieutenant back on, and he's doing pretty well. Okay. Secretary of Veterans Affairs. So, the Commandant of the Coast Guard is typically on every 2 or 3 years because we have a big Coast Guard festival in Michigan. But, again, my focus is on what's going on now, what has happened that we can draw on. Certainly, if I was sitting in the studio today, we'd be talking about the Ukraine.
Ukraine. Question. Now, I always think about whenever I'm dealing with anyone in the military or that was in the military, the one thing that always goes through my mind is when you think about the military, we always have to think about there are certain things that we can and cannot really say to them, certain questions we can't ask them.
That's right.
And do you still follow that philosophy?
Yes. So
Okay.
therefore, if I'm going to ask a question like, do you really think we should let women into Ranger School?
Yeah.
I don't ask a serving military person. I'll ask somebody who's retired.
Okay, exactly.
And the answer is not only no, but no.
Yeah, okay.
But
Because you know what? A lot of times when I'm thinking about saying things or asking things, it's always in the back of my mind that, when you're in the military or you've been in the military, that, when it comes down to military people, that there are a lot of things that we know are definitely, no, you can't say that to them, and no, you can't ask that. But, you find that a lot of times on TV and everything else, people just seem to just ask any old question, and I'm saying they should know better.
yes, they should.
And, but I'm just thinking, I wonder if everybody feels that way.
Well, one of the things about our country is that almost nobody has served in the military. We're talking about 1% of
Right.
people have ever
Yes,
worn the uniform.
1%.
Grow out to maybe 5% if you count people whose families have.
Mm-hmm.
So we're oddballs. We're irregular. We're weird. And they may care for us, they may respect us, but they don't understand us. How can they understand us? Could any one of the three of us understand giving birth to a child? I
No.
watched it.
Yeah, I watched it.
I
also.
caused it, but I didn't do it.
Really blame them.
That's right. So therefore, there's certain things you just can't understand.
Yeah.
And military service, particularly if it got tough, and it doesn't require combat to get tough, is something the average civilian can't understand. That's why I work with a group, I don't want to chase this rabbit too far, called Heroes to Heroes, that takes veterans with very severe PTSD to Israel for 10 days, puts them in a team, takes them there, because in Israel, acceptance is normal because everybody there is in the military.
Military, yes.
And Israel has gone further than any other country reasonably enough to deal with PTS. So therefore, we have a really high rate of helping people by taking them over there. But the point that I want to make is Americans really don't know or care. And it's not that they're bad people. It's that the media plays everything in the military to look bad.
Yes.
The politicians, most of them do. They'd rather take money away from keeping the military or from veterans or from retirees or from anybody than give them to illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Our country really doesn't care.
Yeah, because, I noticed that all the cuts that are being made, the minute they're talking about making cuts, the first thing that is being cut is the military. And I'm saying, wait a minute, these are the people who are putting out all the sacrifices, but the minute you're talking about making cuts, you're going to cut the military? Well, then, what's the sense in that? But that's the way, and like you said, they don't understand, so, to them it's no big deal.
No, my solution is we should restart the draft. We
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
always have a draft.
You know what? I used to think that way. And when I say I used to think that way, is I've always thought that way. But when you start saying it to people, they look at you like you're crazy.
They definitely look at
like, are you crazy? But then the other day I was at the mall, and you have the various little booths where people sing you, or little kiosks, and there's this one particular place where they sell all the little cosmetics and stuff, and these are the little women from Israel, and every one of them serve in the military. And I was talking to them because I have on my little hat that says U.S. Army retired, and they all show you their pictures of them serving. They all have on their little uniforms and their weapons and everything else, and they look like they're ready for combat. And they're all saying, well, we all serve in the military. In Israel, every one of us served. And I'm saying, God, look at all of them. Because she said, it's mandatory.
Yes.
And I'm saying, oh, okay, it's not mandatory here. But she was just saying, because I was asking, I said, the one young lady showed me the other day her picture where she was in the military, because I was trying to ask for her, because I told her I was coming back to get some. She said, you don't remember which one it was? I said, no, not really. I said, she showed me her picture of her being, she said, no, well, here's my picture. And the other girl showed and she said, that's all of us. And then I was thinking, I said, you wouldn't find that here, because everybody would have a baby just thinking about it.
Well, I teach American government at the local community college in Grand Rapids. I teach that part-time. And one of the points that I make to my students is the reason I favor a draft is all the average American thinks about is his rights. He doesn't think about his obligations to his country. His duty to go to, I must confess, I'm politically incorrect. I'm a committed Christian, so just be warned.
I am a Christian.
Oh my gosh.
Well, wait a minute.
Oh my gosh.
You know, but listen, you're in bad company. I got to tell you, you're in really bad company. That's all three of us.
Oh my gosh. Well, my point is,
You know,
as Christians, we're
going to
required.
be stoned now.
We're required to be good stewards of which we're given to, and good
Yes.
stewardship requires taking good care of the country, and that includes serving in the military, serving somehow. So, okay, I've outed myself now.
I believe the draft should be reinstated myself. Remember, everybody our age, every man, every male, our age, most have served in the military, and we get something out of it. We get understanding of life, even if it wasn't a war. But if it was a war, you get that much more out of life.
Well, the bad part about serving in the military is that you get to give back
Yes.
something that you're getting. You know, you get to all the freedoms and everything else that are going on in this country that you love so much that, you know, you can be anything that you want to be here. You get to participate in that instead of just saying, gimme, 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 and take and take and take.
And look at around the world. Suppose we lived in the Ukraine and had that feeling.
Oh, yeah, well, listen.
See, and because the probability of us being invaded from either Canada or Mexico are pretty remote, we're safe, and we think somehow this will never happen here, that we're going to be safe forever and that we're somehow anointed.
Well, you know what?
Else it's coming from the inside.
Yes. Bada boom.
Well, you know, you look at it, and I've always thought that with the creation of America, that was a blessing right there to the world. And nobody looks at it that way.
Not anymore. Matter of fact, you get in trouble for saying it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, and pretty soon I'm sure they'll take in God we trust off the dollar bill and everything else.
But again, if you look at the Declaration of Independence, it says very clearly that man was endowed by his creator with certain inalienable rights. Rights didn't come from the government. According to our founding documents, our rights came from God.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think we better stop talking about that because next week this place may not be here. So, but you know, it's just in the military. I just kind of look at the fact that we go out, we keep this country the way it is. We've done a whole lot for the United States, and each generation just keeps going. They pass the torch along, and the people are able to have what every other generation has had. And but people, if they don't join, if they don't participate, if they don't wear the uniform, if they don't give up the sacrifices that they've been giving up, we wouldn't be where we are today.
That's right.
You know, and a lot of people just don't seem to see that. They don't seem to get that. But then when I look at, you know, Congress and everybody else come by and they start making all these crazy cuts and then say, well, hey, the military, I'm saying, what sense does that make? Why are you doing that?
Well, particularly since the world is a much more dangerous place today than it was 10 years ago or 12 years ago or 15 years ago. It's much more dangerous. Look at Russia, look at China, look at Iran. I mean, and we're disarming.
What is it? Are they cutting? Was it a whole air wing that they're cutting?
Yes.
Yes, but what they're cutting is sort of irrelevant because they're going to cut something, and whatever it is, we're going to need it.
Yeah, well,
but the issue is the attitude that says, "Oh, let's just cut the military," because why aren't we going to need a military? What's going on that makes you think that we don't need one? That's a little bit like you're coming home and deciding we have 3 fire extinguishers in the house. We don't need those anymore. The fact that there's a forest fire in the backyard is beside the point. Just get rid of them. I mean, that's nonsense.
Same thing with the police department. You know, well, we got too many policemen, too many cops, too many sheriff deputies. We don't need as many, so let's cut back. And, you know, because crime is going away.
Yes. Our son is a police officer in Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. And the world is a more dangerous place, if for no other reason than if a terrorist wanted to get into the United States, could he or she do that easily?
Oh, sir.
Well, you don't even have to go with terrorists. All you have to do is look at the news.
Yes.
What was it? I mean, was it a couple of policemen or sheriff's deputies were in a couple of shootouts? One was killed.
Yes.
And then one was shot at, and I think they were wounded. So all you have to do every day is just look on the news, and whatever way we're going, we're not going in that way, we're going that way. So it's a matter of, all you do is look at the military, look at things in general, and then when they start making cuts, it's cut. All right. I think there are other ways to cut a lot of things. Our government is, I don't care who's in office, which way. It's been going that way every time there's an administration going. They start making cuts.
You're
but it's
absolutely right.
always our government, and it's always the military that takes the blunt of all these cuts.
I had a retired police officer on my show a couple of weeks ago, and I referred to him. I said, "You're not exactly my brother in arms, but you're sure my first cousin in valor."
Oh, yeah.
You were out there putting your neck on the line,
Mm-hmm.
and the firefighters,
Yeah,
the first
exactly.
responders,
Yes.
along with we guys in the military, they're the ones who understand what sacrifice is, but nobody else wants to. And when the going gets tough, we're cutting our own throats.
Always.
That's nonsense.
I mean, I'm laughing because I look at the fact that, and then you want to know what's really funny? How many of those guys are reservists?
Yes.
and
Yep.
retirees and actually guys who have been in the military,
High percentage.
So I'm laughing at that because even though, they may not be directly involved, so many of them are indirectly military people anyway.
Yes.
So it still comes right back home. Because when I was a cop, I was a reservist. And there were so many of them that were reservists, And it's funny. I mean, even if they're not, it's like you said, it's the same thing because they're first responders. And they need, just like we're worldwide, they're like the National Guard. They're right here at home,
Yes.
taking care of business.
Yes.
So I can't understand the logic, and it's always let's take care of everything else except for what we really need to take care of, and then when we do take care of it, it's kind of like, well, let's not do that great of a job. We can put money other places that don't really count.
Well, as a guy who teaches the one true science, which is political science,
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you, you're not supposed to laugh at that. Your big problem, Al, is that you're trying to apply logic to government
Yeah.
and
well,
politics, and it just doesn't fit.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But I like it because it kind of reminds me of the old days. Remember when every politician was trying to put a chicken in every pot?
Oh yeah.
It's still the same thing. And you listen to them and you say, well, has anything ever changed really? Is it the same logic that you hear from one politician to the next politician? And what has changed? So when one guy takes office to the next guy, does things really change?
Certainly in the last couple of decades, the answer is no.
Okay.
I do see a little hope. There's a movement that is sometimes falsely called the Tea Party movement, because I belong to about 3 different Tea Parties, and they don't all believe the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
There is no Tea Party movement. If there is a Tea Party movement, it's a group of people who are upset with both parties, who believe the government's spending way too much money and needs to get smaller and give us our rights back. And some of them are pro-life, some are pro-choice, some are pro-gun, some are pro-college. 2. But their one common thing is they want smaller government. And that movement, which includes Tea Party groups, but includes a lot of other groups, they give me hope. They are the ones who are rising up. And, if somebody's got a ton of money and he can get reelected, but you've got a ton of volunteers can overcome that money by phone calls and texts and and emails and door to door and stuff like that, I'm starting to see in different places
Yeah.
citizens getting fed up with both parties and just saying, heck with it, we're going to elect people. And we're starting to see that. There's, I don't know, 40 or 50 of them in Congress right now
Yeah. Well,
that are like that. And they're not taking earmarks, the pork and stuff to buy votes with, and they're trying to stay faithful, and both party leaderships hate them. So there's a movement that gives me hope.
well, I've seen where both parties are spending money like crazy.
Yes.
I've seen where everybody's just fed up with everybody. And I think the American people are just starting to look at, hey, somebody save us one way or another, because things are just getting out of hand. You just don't know what the heck is going on. I look at the news, and I'm always saying, this place is really going crazy. Every time you look up, there's someone selling you something, and then there's someone who's saying, don't buy it. There's someone who's doing something, and then there's someone who's saying, oh, nope, we don't like that. So there's never anything that's being done for anyone, because no sooner than someone puts an X, someone puts an O, and we're just canceling out any programs or anything that's for the better of the people. So I don't think we're going anywhere. My whole thing, in conclusion with whatever, is that all we can do is kind of pray on it and hope that there's an answer that comes up.
And do your homework. When somebody
Yeah.
says something, research it. Hold them
Yeah.
accountable. Don't just sit idly by.
No, and I've been looking at a lot of stuff. I think we're almost running out of time. But I'm kind of looking at the military, and I look at a lot of things. And I used to be a recruiter, and I used to always think that when you put somebody in the military, you put them in, and you just the numbers. I think you're going to make the numbers, but a lot of times when you just put somebody in and you put them in, and they're not a happy chicken. I used to always say happy chickens lay eggs. You put guys in the military and ladies in the military, and you make them enjoy what they're doing. They're going to stay around.
Sure they will.
You put them in, and you're just making that number so you can look good. They're not going to do anything. They're going to get out, and then when they go in, they're not going to be happy. And I used to always try and tell them to the best of my ability what was going to happen. And when they used to come back and say, "Yeah, everything you told me worked out real well," or whatever, I used to always pat myself on the back and say, if nobody else is going to pat you on the back, pat myself on the back. The number didn't matter to me. They used to jump on my behind about, whatever. Well, Sergeant Young, you didn't do whatever. The heck with you. But the kid, when he was happy or she was happy, that made a big
payday.
difference. Yeah.
That's payday.
Because everything else was crap. I didn't really care about that. It was, when years later that person was still there. That's what counts. And I think today, it's like when I go to the store, if that salesperson doesn't give me what I want, I'm not a happy camper. But to know that some of the people that you help, or like with us, when we try to help people, if they get what they get from the VA and they're happy, then I'm happy. If they come back and say, well, my claim went in and I got what I'm supposed to get, then that makes you feel good that you've helped them. And that's what we're all about. And, because, people help me.
You
If
bet.
they didn't help me, I wouldn't have never gotten any of the things I was supposed to get. So my whole thing is to help the next guy. You just kind of pass it forward. If you're being blessed, you help somebody else. Bless them. That's the way I always look at it. And, Carl came along, my co-host, she came along. And, it's a lot of things that are happening in life. And I just think pass on things.
Yes.
So listen, I'm glad you came by, and we had an opportunity to speak to you. Carl had been telling us about you, and I'm glad you could come. And if you come back next year, please come by and see us.
Al, we're going to stay in touch.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And listen, I will. Now, I'm the type of guy who'll bug the heck out of you.
you're invited. I mean, the three of us with our charm, personality, and good looks, we got it made.
Can't miss.
Oh yeah. Hey, listen.
Like the Three Stooges.
I didn't give him very much a chance to say very much because I was too busy running my
I'm a
mouth.
comedy writer. That's what I do best. So that's why I come up with these.
Well, listen. Anyway, I guess we've got a couple of seconds left because my favorite person keeps holding up his hand, and when he holds up his hand, I don't know if he's trying to tell me a couple of seconds or he's doing things. So,
Ever got his armpit?
But anyway, thank you very much for coming.
My
And,
pleasure, Al. Carl?
Good to have you,
Carl.
Danny. Good to have you.
And this is going to be it for this segment. And it's been a very great pleasure for me to have my guest that's here today and my co-host. And what can I say? This has been not a show. This has been a pleasure. And until next week, thank you all for being
And
there.
keep your hand grenades tightened up.